I want to touch back on what you said in terms of desire. I'm rereading Wild at Heart, and I read it 20 something years ago when it
Oh, that's
first
a
came out.
oldie goldie. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm reading it now, and it's actually been great. Kind of revisiting it. Where I first read it as a 20 something year old, 25-year old, however it was, I read it, and now 41, rereading it, kind of having a very different perspective in terms of my state in life right now. Um, but the book's great. It certainly has its limitations, and I say that for sure. But that's not the point of this today's episode. But there's one quote that John Eldridge says in the book that really kind of struck me. Is he says something to the effect that like our desires reveal what we are made for. And I think that's really beautiful. Like if we really do the hard work of purifying our desires, again, not every desire, because we have desires for Snickers and desires for candy bars and desires for social media and all sorts of other desires. But like if we do the work of temperance and being able to fast again appropriately and being able to temper our desires and be still in them, uh, if we pay attention to what's really at the core, if one of these things continues to pop up repeatedly over the course of your life, it's like, man, that's what I'm supposed to do. And so then really the virtue that's needed to pursue that desire
Mm.
isn't so much permission, it's courage. We need courage to be able to take that leap of faith to follow
Mm.
through with whatever
Oh,
that thing is that God has put in our
that's
heart.
brilliant.
And so sometimes we feel that we need permission because sometimes permission makes it easier for us. If I have the great clarity that this is 100% the person I'm supposed to marry, or if 100% this is exactly what I'm supposed to do, this is what God wants from me, then I can step out
Sure.
and do it. But then there isn't any courage that's required in that because it
Mm.
becomes an easy path that you just kind of walk into,
Sure.
rather than actually needing to the muspa, so to speak, to say I'm going to step out into the unknown,
Sure.
thinking and believing that this is what God has for me. But I'm still going to take that leap of faith, knowing that it may not be. But nevertheless, that the pursuit of my desire, if it's a true and holy desire, is the pursuit of God.
Oh, I think that's right. I think those are some excellent points, especially, well, the last point you make is the most important one, which is the desire of my heart itself manifests God's desire for me. I think there's a profound truth in that, as long as it's coupled with the other thing you said, which is that we are constantly striving to
Yes.
purify our desire and to have our desire rightly ordered towards the right things, which is, kind of put it in moral terms, is cultivating the life of the virtues, to be virtuous. You mentioned temperance, whatever the virtues, courage, prudence, good judgment, um, uh, and developing and overcoming our vices, and then as part of that, having people around us who can help us to be uh, clear on exactly what that is, what the desires of our heart really are. But the other side of the desires of the heart that I think it's important, Mario, which you've alluded to, is that the desires of our heart ultimately are ordered towards love. In other words, the purpose of life is to love, is to love God and to love neighbor. That is so. What is the human vocation in its most basic and universal sense? It's that everything spins off of that. So the question is never simply a question of kind of an insular view of what do I desire in and of myself in isolation from anything else and anyone else. And then I kind of work out of that into, well, where can other people fit into what I want? But rather it's an intimate conversation between what are the needs of the world around me? What are the things that I have to offer it? And how does my desire lead me to connect gift to need in a particular way? And if you keep the center of gravity of your discernment not in the ego and the self, but in the other being God, but God particularly as manifested in the other around me, the neighbor. And so the question becomes not what's the harder thing to do in itself, harder for me, but what is the more loving thing to do for the people around me? What is the thing that will maximize the manner in which I can express love in a way that is in accordance with who I am, my limitations, my particular state in life, my gifts, my abilities, and so forth. And how can those be brought into some kind of harmony with each other? I think the real kind of a danger in our culture, because our culture is so intensely focused on the individual fulfillment
Mm-hmm.
as an isolated reality, that then has to kind of, once you get yourself figured out, then you kind of go to everyone else and then figure out where they fit into it. Is that when you don't begin with the presupposition of the other as essential to who I am and my desire and my fulfillment, and then make that connection through love, then you end up locked in a cul-de-sac you can't get out of. There's no way to exit that place in any way.